So thanks for having me here. We're going to talk about the evaluation process today. Who here has already kind of seen it, interfaced with it? Show of hands. Okay, so most folks are going to be reviewing this for the first time. Before you, on your table, there are copies of the printed evaluation system. And then Casey's going to help me drive this tool here because this little button, it's an Excel document, so I can't really utilize the document as it's intended to be. So she's going to help me steer through it, and we'll talk through some examples along the way. I want this conversation to be interactive as possible. So no question is too simple, no question is too complicated. If you start thinking about this tool, I don't know, okay, I won't go there again. If you start thinking about this tool, as we walk through it, and I want you to think about yourself, your work, and you say to yourself, I don't know how I can make this work, this function fit this resource. Ask about it, right? Like, now's the time to ask. And just so you know, I'll say it again, Human Resources is here to answer any questions you have. About 190 people so far throughout the agency have participated in using this resource. So we've answered a lot of questions. I have personally presented to almost 300 people at this point. Well, after today, I probably am about 400 people, this resource as well. So please ask the questions, that's the point. So some folks may be wondering, how did we even get to the place of creating this new evaluation tool? And I know at least one person in this room is like, HR is just looking for work to do. They like dealing with these evaluation tools. It's just HR being HR. Wrong. I actually don't like evaluation tools at all. I love what they can do for a team. I love what they have the potential of being for an organization. However, I hate sitting down. I'm a person who moves a lot. I talk to people. I get energy through people. And so it's kind of painful at times for me to have to sit down and say, let's write a goal, right? So I get it. But just so you know where this is coming from, ODE rolled out its first ever evaluation tool in the history of the Department of Education about 3 years ago, based predominantly on core competencies. When I started this job 22 months ago, almost 23 months ago now, when people would submit their evaluations on a rolling basis, it was always met with or submitted with people, the employee whose evaluation it was, wanting to put something on the record. Like, I want on the record that I disagree with. And I was like, where is that coming from? Like, why are people doing this all the time? And so when I actually sat down and looked at the resource, I said, oh, it's really subjective. And people don't know what their goals are. They're judged on something after the fact. So they're ambushed by the information, and they're kind of thrown back by what their boss is saying about them, and it makes them upset. And any person would feel that way. I've got a colleague who's a vice president of a university who called me literally a couple months ago. Couldn't make this up. And he's like, we talk all the time. He's so frustrated. He was like, I got my evaluation. And I'm like, congratulations. And he was like, no, I got, he was expecting to make it relevant to our evaluation, all, 4s, because he's exceptional. He's a PhD, he's published. And he's super smart. That's why he's my friend. Like, I try to surround myself with really smart people smarter than me. So when he was frustrated, I'm like, why are you frustrated? He was like, well, communications was one of his goal areas, basically a core competency. And instead of getting a 4, he got a 3. And when he asked his boss, like, well, why did I get a 3? She said, oh, well, you didn't turn in your evaluations on time. And he was like, really? That had enough weight to bring my score down from a 4 to a 3, right? He was like, I created all of the policies that this institution has, all of them, hundreds of pages of written documents. I present before I did the commencement, I did the opening ceremony, I did all of that, communications, and the 4 people I have on my team, I didn't get their evaluations in on time, and it brought me from a 4 to a 3. Really? He was upset. Why was he upset? Because he didn't know the rules ahead of time. Had he known that his evaluation of his workforce was going to have enough weight to move him from a 4 to a 3, that would have been in on time. Believe that. And that's kind of the crux of this tool. You know your goals ahead of time. You know what is expected of you ahead of time. When you walk into your evaluation conversation at the end of your year, whether it's a fiscal or a calendar year, there should be no surprises. You all have agreed to and are clear about what is expected of you. If things need to be modified, this tool can be modified. So that's kind of just the origin of where this was coming from. When I heard the cries of the workforce, I totally understood where they were coming from. I could understand if it were me, I'd feel the same way. And so we set forward to build a really rich tool. I looked at the old tool based predominantly on core competencies. That is embedded. I went to, what is it? Human Resources, SHRM, which is the Society of Human Resources Management, which is kind of a renowned HR nonprofit, to see what were the best practices, best resources that were out there from an evaluation standpoint. I took theirs. I took evaluations that I've had in the public sector, in the private sector, in the higher education sector, and it all came together to be this. It's been piloted for about 18 months now. 190 people have utilized this resource. We've refined it. This right now is currently version 15. So over the past 18 months, we've been taking in feedback in real time, making the modifications, and keeping it an active living document. And so now we've gotten to something that is really of high quality. And the feedback we've gotten has been really great. So that's kind of where it's coming from. Now, again, ask questions along the way, please. The instructions, there are some changes to this new evaluation system. Number one, and you can read these all yourselves, but I want to talk about some of the biggest changes. Evaluations are now done on a season. You can either choose the fiscal year or a calendar year, and by you, your supervisor will choose which cycle they want to be on. We have officially phased out the old evaluation tool, so it no longer exists. And if people are wrapping it up and closing it out and submitting it to HR, that's great. But this new one has to be launched effective July 1. So that's why we're going through all of these demonstrations, et cetera. Even if you're on a calendar year, meaning January 1 to December 31st, you're still going to do the new evaluation for 6 months. And then you can just, plug and play, drag and drop the goals into a whole nother year from December 26 or January 1, 2017 through December 31st, 2018 or 2017. So basically, July 1, everybody's going to be on this new evaluation tool. And your supervisor will let you know which cycle or rotation you'll be on. Unlike the old one, you actually submit your new evaluation, the forecasted goals, to Human Resources. So you write them, you sign off on them, and then they go in your file at the start of the year. How is this helpful? This is helpful because if you get a new boss, things are constantly changing. Nothing stays the same in a workforce. Trust me, I work in HR. So when you get a new boss, most of the time they come in, they want to know, what have you been working on? What are your goals for the year? Well, now they can just pull your file and see exactly what you're working on. And if they want to say, we're not going to go in this path anymore, then they have something to base that on, some place to build from. And so that's the point of it. You submit at the start and at the end of your evaluation season. So we're going to skip through section 1 and 2 and 3. That's basically the HR formalities, the signing of it, et cetera, talking about the boxes. But we are going to talk about the difference in the definitions. So goal title, goal description, goal measurement, and goal ratings. Those definitions are there for you. And just so you know, Casey, because again, we've piloted this now with almost 200 people, what we've seen is people need help writing goals. They don't just wake up knowing exactly how to write a really smart, rich goal. And so we actually have a 15-page document of just goal examples from the 190 people, some of the best goal examples broken out into categories. So let's say community engagement will be a category, and there'll be 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 different goals there to help you see your work possibly in that goal. It's been scrubbed to take out any personal identifiers, but it's just basically a starting point from which you can build your goals. I kind of want to go over to that group because they are clearly having a blast.
You're going to start just laughing really loud.
I'm like, well, okay, I got to say something funny, right? Insert joke here. So, what was I saying? I was distracted by that. Look, and then they laugh at me. What? I don't remember what I was. Oh, yeah. So they're examples. You can. It's on the HR intranet where you'll also find an electronic copy of this document as well. So we're going to go into some of the examples so that you can just see the utility of this resource. the first and the last goal, which can be either goal number 1 or goal number 6. So everyone has to have between 5 and 6 goals. No more than 6, no less than 5. So the first and the last goal, the supervisor is the person who actually writes those goals. They're the person solely responsible for writing those goals. The first goal is a shared goal. And I'm not sure if all of ELD has the exact same. Henry, do you recall this? Does all of ELD have the exact same goal number 1?
For licensors.
Okay, so you all broke it out. So it's not the entire ELD has the same shared goal, which was an option. They broke it out into different groups within the division. And we have an example of an ELD shared goal. So here you'll see, and it is also the example is in your printed document, that there's an ELD example of a shared goal. Again, this is a goal that is for every person on your team, although the goal can be written differently to talk about the person's individual contributions to the overarching goal. So let's say, for instance, in human resources, we have a shared goal, and that is to increase the internal customer service survey that goes out to the entire workforce by X percentage points. But the way I write the goal, so the metrics for everybody is the exact same, but the way I write the goal for the OS2 who's on our team is different than the way I write the goal for myself or some of the senior practitioners or recruiters on my team, because they will interface with customer service differently. I want to make it relevant for that individual person in charge of that body of work. So for recruiters, it's getting timely responses to their clients. It is making sure that we do a good job vetting applicants. It's making sure, it's certain things like that. And the OS2 wouldn't have those same exact expectations on her. For her, it's providing accurate information, being courteous, being, those types of things. So again, it's a shared goal, but the shared goal should be nuanced to who you are, what your contributions are to the shared goal. Does that make sense? Okay. And again, that is the first goal is written by your supervisor. Here, ELD has the goal of internal customer service. It says goal description, ELD operations team provides timely, accurate, and appropriate responses for requests, including technical assistance to internal customers. Measurement, internal customers are satisfied with general support, information requests, and requests for technical assistance provided by the operations unit as determined by supervisor of operations. And then you'll see here the ratings are 95% of emails responded to within 48 hours, 100% of deadlines met, and those deadlines are deadlines that were already pre-identified so people understand what the deadlines are. And 0 complaints are received from internal customer service, and this is a supervisor who had been interfacing with complaints and had been receiving them. So, as you can see, this is a dynamic goal. It has multiple pieces to it, and everybody's got skin in the game, right? Again, supervisor writes that goal. I'm actually now going to, yes, ma'am.
What's an internal customer?
So, who?
Is that these guys that I work with, or these I don't know.
Are you on the operations team?
No, I've worked with job supervisors.
So it's, whose goal is this? Is the person who wrote this goal, are you in the room?
Yeah, this would probably be one of the other teams' goals. We're in the room now, we're talking to licensors, and we
Yeah.
have yet to write the goals. So,
Right.
in answer and we'll talk about that a little bit. That's part of this, and we'll try to put some licensor context to the
Right.
discussion here after a while. But yeah, internal customers would be just people that you work with inside your agency. It could be CO, it could be maybe even another section like programs, QRIS, something like that. R&R for partners. They're not so much an internal.
Think about when we talk about operations at the Department of Education side, we're talking about IT. So for instance, IT would have this as an the internal customers are their actual customers. They provide a service to the entire workforce, the entire team. I believe that this is the case for this internal operations team. The ELD operations team who wrote this is interfacing with all of the ELD customers. So you are a customer to certain resources inside of the early learning division. So you are a customer to that person, and they need to be timely in their responses to you when you have a question for them. I actually want to jump down to the last goal just to highlight the two goals that the supervisor is in charge of. So the first goal is a shared goal, and the last goal is a core competency goal, okay? So the core competency goal is one that is very specific to you. This is an opportunity for you to get your professional development. This is an opportunity for you to kind of refine an area that your supervisor feels like you could use just a little bit more work in that particular area. It doesn't have to be deficit-based, so it can be, based on a shortcoming that you have, or it can be based on helping you become even greater than you currently are. This is not just for people who have specific challenges. This is also for people who are the high flyers on a team, the folks who hit it out of the park 9 times out of 10. It can be either way, basically. And so the example that I have here, again, this is written by the supervisor. The example that I have here is from an individual, and I got permission to share it, but it's from an individual who had some challenges on their team. And the supervisor wanted to explicitly highlight it out. So you have to choose from one of the core competency categories, drop down there, and you'll see you can choose flexibility, accountability, initiative, cultural awareness, valuing diversity, and interpersonal skills. You choose one of those. For this one, initiative was chosen. And the example of the goal is initiate things independently and take charge. So again, this is a very specific goal to a very specific individual on the team. This particular person was really finding it challenging. Their job was to interface with customers and provide information to customers, but they second-guessed themselves all the time to the point where every question that would come in, virtually every question, they would either go to a peer or go to a supervisor or go to another person in the building to ask for the response to it, and it was becoming disruptive to the other staff that were there, and they were oftentimes asking the same question over and over again, right? Like in different ways of stating the question. And so I was aware of it because it had percolated up to HR. The supervisor was aware of it, and so they felt it was necessary to really spell it out here in a goal to take the initiative. The description, this right here is where your description can be a little bit more touchy-feely. It says, everyone second guesses themselves at some point. What we all have to be aware of is not allowing the exercise of reevaluating our inclinations to paralyze us. Take a chance, make decisions, and if it's wrong, deal with it or fix it and move on. Start to independently make decisions. The measurement, I will take notice, right? Because the reason why it's here is because the supervisor had already taken notice. I mean, a lot of people had taken notice. So what the supervisor is saying is that I will take notice to how often you request assistance from your peers, supervisors, or other employees for matters to which you should already have the answers, right? And by the way, many of the questions that were being asked, you could find the information. Right? Like we know how to go to the DAS website. We know how to go to the things that keep us compliant. This person just wasn't engaging in those types of, independent, take charge to figure out the responses. Sometimes it's just easier to say, hey, Henry, what's the answer to that? And it's like, okay, I'll tell you this one time. Don't keep asking me to do this for you. And that's kind of what this was. Excellent performance was no more questions, right? Not any questions at all, but questions to answers that you should already know. Or answers to questions that you should already know. Success was 1 to 5 questions, performance needs improvement 6 to 10 questions, unsatisfactory were 11 or more questions. At the halfway point, the person was well above kind of 50 questions. But it wasn't gonna break them. So the point of this tool is to really be able to show you how the scoring works. And it's auto-populated at the end, and I'll show you how that works in a bit too. So let's say at the mid-year this person was a 1, and at the year end they were at a 1. The first and the last goal are maxed at 5% weight. So even if you get a 1 on both of them, you can still be in an excellent category, right? That's the takeaway here. So those are the 2 goals that your supervisor writes, independent from you. The middle goals are goals that you actually take the lead on crafting the initial goals. You yourself actually gets to talk about what success means for your work. So, again, here you can write between 3 and 4 goals based on your responsibilities, your core responsibilities. And again, it's not every single thing that you do. It's the big pieces of work that you're responsible for. I mean, I have 150 walk-ins, feels like every single day, but that's not a goal, right? Respond to people who walk up with a question, not a goal. Because I'm the HR director, I have some bigger goals, and I have to do all of those, those small things that pop up all day as well. And so what you have to do is look at your position description and really think about how do you do your work? What percentage of your time is dedicated to certain projects versus other projects? And then craft the initial goal. You will write. You take the first stab at writing the goal title, the goal description, and the goal rating. Right? You take the first step at writing all of that, as well as the weight. And then you present that to your supervisor. And then you and your supervisor will have a discussion about what you put down and if they see it the same way. So when it's evaluation time, you take the first step at crafting out your goals. You may call HR like, hey, how do I put this body of work into a goal? Can you help me troubleshoot through that? Absolutely. We do it all day long. And then you can even say to your boss, like, HR helped me draft this. That doesn't mean anything. Your boss has to say that you're spot on with that goal. Or they can say, you know what, that description is a little off. Or I actually don't think that that's your job. Like, that's popped up a few times, right? It's like, oh, but I've been doing this work for the past 26 years, or what, and they say, okay, well, let's unpack that, right? It's an opportunity for you to really make the pitch of what you have been working on, how you see the percentage of your time being earmarked in certain places, and then for your supervisor to say, okay, well, I actually want for 40% of your time focused here versus the 20% you said should be that you currently have on your evaluation, and then the 40% you have over here, I want that to be ratcheting down to 20%. That then gives you the space to say, okay, so if I only spend 20% time working on this project now, instead of the 40% that I first pitched, here's what I think is going to happen. Here are the things I believe will fall through the cracks. Or here's where there's some stuff that's going to have to go on other people's plates. And they will have that conversation and make those decisions. And then ultimately, it's your supervisor's decision on if they will agree or disagree with or want you to modify or make changes to. But it's a conversation. And for most people in the agency, ELD included, because quite a few people piloted this evaluation tool, it was their first time ever having a conversation about how I see my work, how my supervisor sees my work, and how they want me to prioritize my work, how they want me to spend my time on this work. Or it was a time for me to say, hey, this is taking 60% of my time. Can you don't want me to do 60? Then I need 3 other people to take on the other 40%. Right? It's the first time. And folks have been feeling really empowered by that, to be able to finally have that conversation and not just feel like they have to take everything in the world on their shoulders. So you should know that. Now, we're going to walk through some examples of how it actually works, some examples of the goals. And I do want for you all to ask questions. Before we get into those examples, goals 2 through, I think, 5, are there any questions? Okay. So I'm going to pause after every goal that I go through and see if you have any questions along the way, okay? So goal 2, assist early learning division in the successful planning, execution, and implementation of the Equity Breakthrough Project. Goal description, provide guidance and project management to early learning division staff. So this is a supervisor's goal or leadership goal, so that the Equity Breakthrough Project can be successfully planned, executed, and implemented. The measurement, the Equity Breakthrough Project will meet designated timelines and quality expectations of deliverables, which are actually pretty well spelled out in the Equity Breakthrough Plan. So again, the point of the goals is not to make you write new ways of analyzing your work. It's to tap into ways that you already analyze your work, right? So this is a goal that was based on a project that already exists, that already had metrics and benchmarks and expectations, et cetera. I don't expect for you to all think about building a brand new Equity Breakthrough Plan for your work. No, that's not what this is. Whatever you're currently doing, this should be with that, not to create something brand new. So the rating is, excellent performance would be that the project is on target with timelines and deliverables. Success would be that the project closely meets expectations for timelines and deliverables. Performance needs improvement is that it's ongoing but not meeting expectations, et cetera. For this, yes?
So when you say that we're going to be coming up with our goal, are we also then writing the rating?
Yes.
Are we coming up with what excellent means to us?
Yes.
Okay.
So the question was, and we have a video camera in the back because we will be using this presentation to send to all of the Department of Education, the workforce, so that they can have this as a tool as they're sitting down and if they miss this presentation, et cetera. So your question was, will you be writing what excellent is? Will the employee, the individual, have first crack at that? Yes, you will. You write everything. You write the weight. Do you think it's 20%? You write what you believe excellent is, et cetera. Now, when you present it to your supervisor may say, I think excellent. So for this one, I think project is on target with timelines and deliverables is successful. That's not excellent. They could say that, right? I think excellent is, that's the benchmark, that you meet the timelines. Excellent is you meet the timelines, plus you demonstrate it to 3 other agencies to try to get other agencies to adopt the I mean, I don't know. Like, you can make this thing look a million different ways. For this employee and her boss, this is what excellence, success, performance needs improvement, and unsatisfactory meant for them. This is what they felt was fair and equitable for the individual responsible. So again, you take a first crack at it, but expect that when you submit it to your supervisor, there may be questions, there may be, you know, a difference of opinion, a different way of seeing the work, a different level of expectation they have for you in this work. Great question, thank you. So the weight that is here is at 20%. Let's now talk about a mid-year rating and a year-end rating. So what is a mid-year rating? It is a halfway point, and it does not necessarily mean that you need to be at 50% of whatever the goal is. It means that you need to be on track towards accomplishing your goal successfully. On track can look a lot of different ways for a lot of different goals. So let's say that your expectation is to visit 12 schools. And successful performance is that you visit all 12. Excellent performance is that, you know, you visit 13, right? I always tell people that successful is the benchmark that is attainable and the expectation that you have for the employee, right? It's a SMART goal. Excellent is whatever your success is plus 1. And by plus 1, I mean however it is you define what plus 1 is, okay? For this case, this example, if you have the expectation of visiting 12 schools and you are on a fiscal year. So you started your goals July 1, but you actually don't start getting access to go into schools until October, November, December. Some people, I mean, for some people, child nutrition folks, they don't go into the schools until a little bit later on to see if the lunches are doing things correctly, et cetera. So if you go into the schools later, but your 6-month check-in is in December and you haven't gone to a school and you have 12 to visit, should you get unsuccessful because you haven't gone in yet? Well, no, you haven't been able to go in yet because that's not the way the process works. But are you on track to be able to visit those 12 schools? Do you have your schools identified? Have you got your travel plans arranged? Have you gotten your car reserved? You know, those kinds of things. It does not mean that you need to be exactly at 50%, but it could mean that you should be at exactly 50%, right? So again, it's not black and white, but life is not black and white. This is why it's built in the gray in this way. And mid-year, you do not submit these. So HR does not track your mid-year check-in. We don't. We will remind you to have the mid-year check-in. It is best practice to have a mid-year check-in. The reason why we believe it's important to have a mid-year check-in is because it's important for you all to be able to talk to your supervisor and check in and say, hey, we have a goal that I meet 12 schools, but you know, my schools that I visit, you know, 2 of them are under investigation. I'm making things up here. Clearly, I'm in HR. I don't go to schools, so I don't know what's happening out there. But for whatever reason, you've run into some challenges to meet your goals. We want for you to be able to check in and to be able to tell your supervisor, here are the hurdles I'm up against, right? And then it becomes your supervisor's responsibility to help you either modify the goal, because these are a living document. It is not, you write it once and it's done. You can write this goal, and then you see that there's no way for you to be able to actually accomplish the goal the way it's written, or perhaps your entire job function shifts, right? You were, this legislative season, you thought you were doing X, now you're doing Y because representative person said that they want you to do something different. Your goal, if it's a significant enough body of work, should evolve with your responsibilities, because we want you to be successful, right? So it becomes you all's responsibility to go to your supervisor and say, hey, my duties have shifted, on board with it. I just want my goal to be represented in that. So let's revisit this and let's rewrite these 2 goals because I'm no longer doing these projects or this work. And then you would sign off and resubmit it to Human Resources. More than likely, your supervisor will not remember to do that. It is your responsibility to remind them that it's important that they modify your goals when your duties have shifted significantly or when you have identified that there are so many hurdles to accomplishing a goal that you all have set that you have to eliminate the goal and do something different, okay? It's in progress. It's a living document. Mid-year is not on the record at HR. It's a good to do. We will remind you to do it, but it's just a best practice. But the year-end goal is submitted to Human Resources, and it is on the record. So just so you know that. Any questions before I go to the next goal example? The reason why I'm going through these goal examples is so that you can try to see yourself in this work. Please, if you have questions as you're envisioning yourself writing this goal, stop and ask. No question too simple or complicated. Okay, so let's say mid-year you were tracking successful, but at the end of the year, for this particular goal, you hit it out of the park, you got an excellent, right? You stretched yourself. Not only did you hit the successful, you went your successful +1. Goal number 3, this is also an ELD goal. Remember, these are the goals you're writing first, submitting to supervisor. So this goal says the Early Learning Division effectively and efficiently uses the work plan, fundamentals maps, and QTR, quarterly target review, to manage performance. This is another supervisor goal. Who here knows what the QTR fundamentals map and work plan? Who knows what those are? You heard about them? Few less than last one. Okay. Measurement, timelines are met, and managers are actively managing performance against the work plan, fundamentals map, and QTR. Rating, excellent performance will be 100% of QTR deadlines are met, 100% of implementation milestones in the work plan are met. Successful, and we actually like to have ranges because it's rare that people get an exact 80. So if you put a range in there and you say 80 to 99, then you don't have people saying, hey, it's not 80, just make a range. I'm telling you, it's going to save you some headache later. And it ratchets down from there. We put the weight at 25%, and this is, you can't have more than 100% weight for this entire document. So for this fabricated fake person, we had to make these percentages what they are. We put the weight at 25%, and let's just say for this goal, the person was at a 2 at the midpoint because they were not on track to get to 80%. They were just way off when they checked in. And then at the year end, let's give them a 3. They hit that 80 to 99%. Any questions about this? Is again just another example of a goal. Yes, sir.
I have a question about this particular goal.
Yeah.
What if you have an overachieving employee who brings you 8 goals that they want to put in there, and as a supervisor have done the last one, as a supervisor, should we say, hey, we need to pare it down to 5 or 6, or is it okay to have more?
No, 6 goals is the max. Having 8 goals is really challenging because goals should be higher level, right? So many things can feed into a goal, and this is why you see we have some dynamic metrics here. But 8 goals is a lot if you are at the right height level. So I would say for a high achiever who wants to really articulate the nuances of his job, then your rating system can be nuanced, but your goal should be a higher level. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Great question. Can you have 6 to 8 goals or 8 to 12 goals? No. 6 is the max for the document, and it's kind of hardwired in that way as well. Great question. Did I see another hand? No? Okay. Okay, next goal we're going to talk about, goal number 4. This comes from Tim Boyd's team. He's on the teaching and learning group. Gave us permission to use these goals. They piloted this program much like about half of ELD did. Promote planning and identification of next steps focused on the Oregon Mentor Program standards. Description, provide timely non-directive feedback that identifies next steps focused on the Oregon Mentor Program standards. Measurement, based on site visits, projects will receive timely non-directive feedback designed to promote further planning and identification of next steps focused on the Oregon Mentor Program standards. The rating, Rating is excellent is 4 of the 7 projects received an on-site visit and follow-up feedback from April to June. April, May, June, within like 3 months. Success, 3 of the 7. Needs improvement, 2 of the 7. Unsatisfactory would be 1 of the 7. And for excellence, I would say 4 or more of the 7 projects, right? So I got 4. Do I get any extra bonus for 5? No, 4 or more. Excellent. And we put this weight here at 15%. And again, this is another dynamic goal. So you don't have to, we can have singular goals where it's very specific. Maybe for an example of that would be here, it would just be that 4 of the 7 projects, this is kind of a singular goal. 4 of the 7 projects receive an on-site visit and follow-up feedback. It's got 2 components, but it's 1 goal. In the previous goal, you see that there were 2 different metrics. There was a QTR deadline and a milestone deadline being met. Some people have 3 or 4 pieces in there. When you write a dynamic goal, be prepared for there to be some variability. So for instance, what if a person in goal number 3, successful performance is 80% of QTR deadlines met, 80% of implementation milestones met. What if they hit 80% of QTRs and 62% of the milestones? Is that success or is that performance needs improvement, right? If you're gonna write a dynamic goal, you have to be prepared for when it's not completely black and white. And maybe that would be an unsuccessful performance because the 62% was just too far below the 80%, right? But it's something that the employee and the manager have got to come to terms with if they do write a dynamic goal in that way. Yes, sir?
Sorry.
No, don't say sorry. I love having you here.
Well, I've only been here like 2.5 months, and I'm the manager of the central office.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure this out. So, what if during your mid-year sit-down, you and your employee discover that you set these targets wrong? Do you adjust them at that point?
Yes, it's a living document, and at any point you can revisit them and say, ooh, we need to recalibrate these. I would not advise you to recalibrate if a person is knocking it out of the park, right? Let's just celebrate, not recalibrate. But what I would say that, if you're talking to them and you see that they really, that group of people or that individual person really cannot meet that deadline, and you see them humping and they're doing high quality work and they're working diligently, you should definitely revisit and modify. But let's say, for instance, you've got a team of 6 and they all have the same position description and they all have basically the same job function. And you come together as a group. Number one, you should. If you have people who are apples to apples doing basically the exact same work, you should get them together as a group. They should come together with some general goals as a team so that there's not a lot of variability between their core goals. But you see that one person on the group is really struggling and everyone else is like, this is easy, this is a piece of cake. Totally different situation, right? The question for that becomes, how do we support them better? How do we recalibrate the load to make sure that we're playing to their strengths, but also not exploiting the rest of the team so that they're able to. So it's really nuanced. But what I say is, if everyone else, if it's a team of 6 and one person is really struggling kind of to stay afloat, then and the other ones aren't having to burn the midnight oil to stay afloat, right? Like within 40 hours, they're able to reasonably accomplish what the goals were, right? They're not killing themselves to do it, but the one person is really struggling, then it's a conversation about how to differently support, recalibrate their work, or perhaps give them a different responsibility if they're not able to stay up to speed. Yeah, you're welcome. It was a great question. Keep them coming. So, ma'am, did you have your hand up? Okay, gotcha. All right, so goal 4, we talked about that. You see that was more of a singular solitary goal. Let's say at the midpoint, this person actually was at a 3, even though they had not visited any schools, because it is January 1, not April, and the visits happen between April and June, right? But they are on track to being able to hit those visits. Even though they visited none, they still got a successful because it's not that season yet. And then at the end of the year, let's say they're at a 3, a successful. They got to all 3 of their schools. Okay. So the last goal that we're going to talk about is a goal that I love. It's a goal that I have now adopted for my own goal. And it says, and this is one of Tim Boyd's goals, it says develop personnel. Description, developing personnel. If I'm doing my job right, my people will meet their goals. Touche, supervisor, right? And I love Tim for writing this goal. Measurement, develop my team so that they are meeting their goals, right? At the end of the day, a supervisor's job is to help you be successful. That's the point. That's why they're not doing that work and they're supervising people who are doing that work. Excellent performance is 90% or more of my staff earns a 75% on their evaluation or better. That's a success. Successful is 80 to 89% receives a success, right? And we place the weight here at 30%, but he actually has the weight at, I believe, over 50%, which means that if he does not win at this goal, he will have failed in his entire evaluation, completely failed. He's got a lot of skin in the game in helping his team be successful, right? In helping his team be successful. And by the way, we've seen his team goals. It's not like he watered them down. They've got big goals out there. He is just committed to helping them be as successful as they possibly can be. It's a beautiful, awesome goal, and it's got a lot of weight. So for this example, let's say, he did his mid-year check-in, and most of his workforce were not on target to be successful. Imagine that. He got a 2. But at the end of the year, 80 to 90% of his team, so we'll give him a successful, got a 3. And again, I'm just putting these numbers in here because I'm about to get ready to show you the way that it aggregates the totals at the end. And we've already gone through goal number 6, which is the personal goal. And now you see the numbers that were generated. And I'm pretty sure that these totals are different because we changed some of the numbers up. So what you'll see here is that the mid-year, again, not submitted to HR, not on the record. The mid-year, this person was tracking at a 58.75%. This imaginary person that's a hodgepodge of teaching and learning and ELD and a little bit of some other teams in there too, a 58%. But at the end of the rating season, they were at 82.5, which is well into the successful, almost in the excellent category. So you would then click, you have demonstrated you are a successful performer, right? And then this gets signed off on and it gets submitted to human resources. We're going to go down to the last page really quick. Oh no, actually action plan. So here the action plan. The action plan should be used to talk about where you have unsuccessfully met a goal, where you've gotten a 1 or 2, and what we're going to do to help you succeed next time. Now this action plan for a goal may be to recalibrate the goal, right? Maybe its goal was really written poorly. No one on that team stood a chance of being able to successfully meet because of whatever reason. We didn't check in at the halfway point, or we did check in, but we didn't know that these other things were going to happen in the final 6 months. So next year, we're going to rewrite that goal very differently. The reason why this action plan is so critically important is because it's on the record. So it's an opportunity for a supervisor, say you get a new supervisor and they see your evaluation, and they say, whoa, they got 2s. What's the plan for this? And it says in there, we wrote these goals poorly. And it's like, oh, okay, done and done. But we want to be able to have a reason for you not being successful or a next step to help you be successful in the next year. That's the point of the action plan. And you can write it for each goal that you have. So if you type in there, Casey, you'll be able to see that you can get quite a bit of information in there, in that area. Okay? There's also a section here for notes. Anybody can write a note here, the employee or the supervisor. You can write a note because, again, remember, when I first started, everybody wanted something on the record. So I wanted to make sure that there was still space for people to get things on the record. And then the final document here is, or the final page is a summary of goals. This summary of goals is something that you may print if you'd like. So once you populate in all your goals, so that you don't have to be referring to this big piece of paper, you can just print this off and just have a reminder of your goals. You can put it in your cube, you can put it in your drawer, you can put it wherever, or you can just not print it at all. Your decision. But it's there for you in a consolidated way with just basically the goal title. Did I miss anything? Casey and I, we do this dog and pony show a lot. So I'm like, what did I miss? And she says, not much. Any questions about it? About how you can see yourself doing it? Taking the first crack at writing the goals yourself? Yes, ma'am.
Not really that question. But
Yeah.
So, you're saying 6, but we're really actually only writing 4 because
3 or 4.
supervisors are doing the other 2.
Correct.
Okay.
That is exactly right.
All right.
You write 3 or 4 goals and submit those to your supervisor. Yes, ma'am.
Who has the final decision on the rating and the weight and actually like a goal?
Yeah. The final decision is your supervisor.
Okay.
And when you sign off, it is not that you necessarily like are, because I work in HR, I have to say these things, even if just one person, this pops up for someone. It is not necessarily saying that you love the goals. I'm not signing this because I don't love the goal. No. It's saying that you know what the goals are. You're signing that your supervisor knows what the goals are and you know what the goals are. And it is now on the record that everybody knows what the goals are. That's it. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
So as the employee, it is your responsibility to do that halfway check-in?
It's your responsibility to remind your supervisor. Now, again, it is not mandatory, but it is a best practice. And we're going to remind the heck out of y'all mostly by email, yeah. And it depends on which rotation you're on. So everyone won't have the same check-in time, but everyone will get a check-in reminder.
What is the seasonal rotation you talked about?
Fiscal year, July 1 to June 30th, or calendar year, January 1 to December 31st. Yep. Other questions?
So if you fail to meet 80% of your goals
Yeah.
at the end of the year, are you just put on a work plan?
Yes. You would need a work plan if you fail 80% of your goals. Yeah. And that work plan is basically, or it may not be that. It may be that this is the first time anyone has ever engaged in writing these goals in this way. And the way they were written were way too pie in the sky. In a perfect world, you'll visit every school in the state of Oregon. So no, that's not gonna happen. And we'll try to catch that in HR when you submit it. But again, we won't push back too aggressively. If a supervisor says, no, my expectation is that every single day they're at a new school, I'll say, okay, maybe that is the new thing. HR isn't in the work, so we can't push back too aggressively. If you write a really aggressive goal and then at the check-in point or the halfway point or earlier or later, you don't recalibrate it and you just kind of let it take its course to see, is this really gonna work? And it doesn't, then I would just write that in the action plan. We are going to write these goals differently for the next year. By the way, from one season to the next, you could just drag and drop these goals. So the biggest lift is going to be when you first write the goal, you're a brand new employee or something of that nature. But from year to year, if your job is the same and your goals are generally the same, you can drag and drop them, right? We don't expect for you to revisit every single goal. But a lot of people, what I've seen through this pilot process is that a lot of people are like, so that goal did not garner the results I thought it would. We need to rewrite this differently to get to that end goal that we had in mind. Great questions. Any other questions? Thank you for having me. Human Resources is available to answer any questions you have. I'm not saying we're kind of available or like really don't call us. No, call us. If you have questions about it, you can call me, you can call Casey, you can call the general number and say, I want to talk to somebody about my goal writing. And you will either be directed to me specifically, Casey or Chris, who is your human resources consultant, and we will be there, Johnny on the spot, to say, what do you have in mind? What's the body of work you're trying to unpack and put into a goal? And let's walk through it. Yes, ma'am.
I just thought of something I meant to ask earlier.
Yeah.
I was red circled back in like 2000. And
So red circling is when you max out
yeah,
in the salary.
classifications,
Mhm.
redo, whatever. And so does this in some way impact pay increases?
No.
Or this is a work performance thing. This has nothing
Yeah.
to do with.
No, we work for the state. You're going to get that COLA at your, if they agree to it, and you're going to get that step as per bargained. And I don't come from the state, so it's always been interesting. I'm like, if I knock this out of the park, I'm expecting bonus, 50% of my salary. And they say, God bless you and be with you. Never going to happen. So this is just based on the work and us wanting to do the best job we can do.
And I just never want to miss an opportunity to find
No, me too. No, you and I on the exact same boat. I'm with you. I wish I could say this will get you 70% bonus, right? I'd have started there, right? And then I'd had applause like they're getting next door. But I don't have that in my arsenal. Great question. Exactly. You get a raise. You get a raise. Like my Oprah moment. I was hoping for that. Any other questions? Oh, we got a question. Oh, that she's not getting a raise. She was excited that she's not getting. Yeah. I wish I could do that for myself. That's right, but I'm on the record saying I didn't say that. All right, gang. Well, it is now 11 o'clock. My time has expired, and I want to thank you all for giving me your attention. If you have questions, come on over to Human Resources. Look us up. Send us an email. Anything you need, we want to give you, except for a raise, we want to give you that support. All right? So thank y'all.